shirt.
That's a good idea. That was a good call.
What's that?
He has his insulated shirt on.
Side. Flannel. Now. So my daughter's at the airport for 4 months. I'm gonna miss her.
All right, it's I see the time's 6:30. I'm going to reconvene our meeting for Wednesday, January 15th. If you all join me, please, and pledge to allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Second on the agenda tonight is, or third, to offer the public an opportunity to be heard. If anyone would like to speak now? Good time. Please state your name and your address. Oh, right there's good.
Good evening, everybody.
Oh, don't forget to state your name and your address.
My name is Rich McCoy. I live at 12 Wishingwell Lane in New Milford. I come here tonight wearing many hats. I am the data specialist for New Milford Public Schools within the Fiscal Services Department. I'm the father of a first grader named Jack at Hill and Plain Elementary School. I'm also the husband of an elementary school teacher named Kristen at Hill and Plain. My family and I are very proud to live, work, and grow in New Milford, which is why last night we were shocked to learn that my wife's teaching position was one of the 10 proposed jobs in a job reduction in this budget. As someone that routinely has their face stuck in a spreadsheet, I myself have to stop and remind myself sometimes that data is more than just numbers. I'm here to put a face to who we are. Kristen and I both are new to working in the local public schools. I've been serving in my rank for about a year. Kristen just recently left a 20-year tenured teaching position for the dream job to teach for the town that she loves. She was raised here in New Milford, and we're now raising our son here. I know that one of the district's goals this year is to hire, develop, and retain passionate and exceptional staff as it meets an ever-changing student need. My wife and I take great pride in being New Milford Public School staff members and contributing to our community's educational system. My hope is that the board gives strong consideration towards removing the job elimination proposal from the budget. Thank you.
There's no one else. We'll move on to the part of the meeting. Bellato, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you. This evening, we will resume our budget presentations, and we'll begin with Schaghticoke, followed by New Milford High School. So Ms. Gorlick, please.
Good evening, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening and to present the budget for Schaghticoke Middle School for the 25-26 school year. So we begin, obviously, with the district mission statement. This is a major driver for our budget presentation each and every year. As we think about the budget, we want to make sure that we are thinking about preparing each and every student to embrace challenges. We want to make sure that they respect and appreciate the opportunities that we give them in the school setting that they have in the community. We also want to make sure that we are preparing them to contribute to society through the educational opportunities that we are offering them. We also keep in mind the ideas that we live by, the focus, heart, collaboration, and creativity. And you'll see these logos and icons appear throughout the presentation today. These are some of the things that we're going to discuss that we've been working on, especially in the next couple of slides. Talk a little bit about who we are at SMS. SMS is comprised of 936 members, 796 students, and 140 staff. The demographics for students are shifting rapidly. Our students are presenting with an increased level of need financially, academically, socially, and behaviorally. You can see there in the diagram to the left The breakdown of our students, 395 males, 400 females. 207 of our students this year received free lunch. 60 received reduced price lunch. 49 of our students are identified as talented or gifted. 67 have 504 plans. 149 are special ed, and 70 students receive MLL services. On our certified staff list, you can see there 81.5 teachers, and then there's a breakdown of other staffing positions. Of note there, we currently have 2 social workers, 1.5 school psychologists, 2 interventionists, and 4.5 school counselors. SMS is slated to run with 3.5 school counselors next year. That is just of note, just based on what I said before, where our students are presenting with increased levels of need with respect to their social emotional needs. So what have we been working on? Climate and culture really continues to be a point of emphasis at SMS. The work that we've done over the last several years really has made a big difference. Always a much quieter learning environment is much more conducive to learning, but we also recognize that the work in this area really is never done. Therefore, we continue to work hard to reinforce clear and consistent expectations for behavior and conduct for all members of the SMS community. We continue to work to foster student and teacher leadership opportunities, to integrate opportunities for fun into the school environment, and to improve the physical plan. One great opportunity for student leadership that I really want to highlight is the Student Leaders for a Change organization, which is actually spearheaded by Mr. Boucher. Last year they had the opportunity to attend the CASH's middle level student leadership conference. I believe that was out in Cheshire. We're excited to offer our students this opportunity. They got to go and network with student leaders from around the state, which is something that our students don't often get to do. And that was thanks to funding that was available through the budgetary process. We once again are going to be able to offer them that opportunity to do that again this year. Additionally, what ends up happening is our students go, they learn those skills from that networking, from the workshop opportunities that they participate in, and then they bring those skills back into the school community and apply them to doing things like planning for our incoming 6th grade open house. They help do things like plan for events like our student staff basketball game. Right now, this year, they're working on developing a kindness campaign to reward and recognize members of the SMS community for the acts of kindness that we're seeing in the school. So we're looking for ways to recognize student leadership, to grow those skills, and then have them come back and apply those skills in the school community, which we then will hope will translate out into the Milford community as well. Incorporating fun is also a big part of our community building process. This year we held a door decorating contest before we headed into the holiday break. We also held color wars, and you'll see in those photographs above, the top one there is actually a picture from our color wars assembly. You'll also see students signing kindness pledges on Unity Day and student leaders presenting their proposals for the project. We've also been working really, really hard to improve academics, and these are several of the areas that we've been working on. The biggest piece that affects the building as a whole really is our building-wide professional learning, and Mrs. Powers has been taking the lead on this. We've been focused on formative assessment through a lens of discipline literacy, specifically focusing on the use of academic vocabulary across the content areas. And what we're really looking for there is to have teachers make sure that they're explicitly teaching the academic vocabulary that students need to be successful in the specific content areas, and then how they can use the formative assessment cycle to see whether or not their instruction has in fact been effective, whether or not there are gaps in student learning, and then figure out how they might act on those gaps to reinforce learning for students to make sure that they make the growth that they need. All of that goes back to best practices in teaching, which can then be applied out to other areas of the teaching practice. In science, the department has been working in collaboration with New Milford High School to work on skills that students need to be fine-tuned at the middle school level so that they can be successful as they move up into high school. In ELA, we've been doing work both on short-term needs with respect to reading comprehension and vocabulary work, but also long-term on more curricular-based needs, looking at standards alignment, the development of a list of non-negotiables, which will hopefully then translate out into work with school-wide rubrics for things like writing, speaking, and basically presentation aspects that relate to the ELA department. Those will hopefully then also translate into interdisciplinary work that will relate to the social studies departments and science departments for school-wide learning. Social studies has been really busy this year. They have new standards that are being rolled out across the state, so they've been looking at those new standards and restructuring their coursework, which will impact all 3 grade levels. They're also doing a lot of work to learn more about inquiry-based learning and project-based learning for when they have to roll these new curriculum designs out next year. Our math department has also been working on a lot of curricular-based things or instructional-based practices. They've been doing a lot of work with a book called Building Thinking Classrooms, which is designed to build critical thinking and problem-solving routines with kids. It's designed to get kids up out of their seats and at vertical boards. That's one example of an instructional strategy in the classroom, and really grappling with the mathematics, talking through things in small groups, as opposed to having instruction be teacher-led. We're seeing gains in student perseverance in the classrooms where teachers are really dedicated to incorporating that on a more regular basis. Students are utilizing that academic vocabulary and talking through solutions, and those teachers are finding that their students are more successful in persevering in their problem solving. Our math department is also doing a deeper dive into formative assessment and are working on the selection of primary resources to support their curriculum across the grades 6 through 8. We also continue to build capacity with our teacher leaders, focusing primarily on the head teachers for our core content areas. What we're working with our teacher leaders there on is how to effectively lead their departments, focusing on the delivery of professional learning on areas that they notice that their teachers might need support in, based on the things that they're seeing and hearing in department meetings or when they're visiting classrooms. So kind of how to move their departments forward. They are the content area experts in those areas, so they are an important part of our leadership team, and we feel that they needed some support in kind of how to go about doing those things. We also, this is a project that carries over from last year, continue our work to kind of redesign our STEM, computer science, and digital media courses to make them more relevant and update them to kind of the needs of what's going on in the world. Our budget priorities. I do think that this picture kind of sums up our budget priorities pretty well. Our kids were the focus as we developed our budget for the 25-26 school year. So the biggest driver for our budget for this coming year really is maintaining and strengthening current programming. There were significant increases to the costs of everyday items. So a lot of what drove this budget were just the costs to maintain the classroom supplies and things like that that drive teaching and learning. So maintaining our current academics, athletics, and clubs and activities was a really big part of this budget. There are a few things here of note. We need to update some equipment and materials that have either reached the end of their lifespan and need to be replaced, or that just simply need to be updated. So for example, we need some books to kind of strengthen our ELA program. We need some additional texts to provide more resources to classrooms to increase the quantity of books that are available. We also need some more text to be able to differentiate reading levels for students that are in the classroom. Additionally, we are requesting some funds to provide the VOCES platform to support language acquisition in French and Spanish classrooms. That goes with the comprehensible input instructional technique, which is it's less based on memorization and more based on kind of a strategy of whether or not you can kind of get your point across, and the VOCES platform helps with that instructional method. And we're also requesting whiteboards for math classrooms so that there is more instructional space to get more students up and at boards vertically and problem solving at the same time. The pictures that you see above do represent those three areas. There's a picture in the bottom left-hand corner of students engaged in the science lab on matter. The other picture on the bottom there are 3 students that are actually engaged in a special news broadcast, which is a special version of our morning announcements called Good Morning SMS, and the top is a picture of our boys basketball. There are also some budgetary factors aimed at improving course offerings. As we worked to begin last year, we are continuing to try to improve our course sequence for computer science. Last year, we began down the road of shifting our computer science sequence from computer science 6, 7, and 8, which was grade level based, to computer science 1, 2, and 3. The prerequisites for computer science really are important, and the grade level basis kids weren't being successful. So we have computer science 1 and 2 running this year. Next year, we're requesting the equipment needed to run computer science 3. Computer science 3 is based in robotics, and so we need the VEX robotics kits to support that program. Pictured here actually is pretty cool in the center there. That's Mr. Fortuna. He is our ISS monitor, but he has a small business outside of the school setting, and he's actually speaking to our STEM class because he runs a haunted attraction. So he spoke to the classes, and then they built their own scale models of attractions and mazes out of cardboard based on his presentation. So they took what they learned from him to implement into their models, used marble runs and things like that through the mazes. It was a pretty cool experience. The final factor in our budget priorities were opportunities to learn outside the classroom. We continue to want to foster those student leadership opportunities, the opportunities to send students to leadership conferences, and to provide opportunities for student leadership through extracurricular activities. We also want to continue to foster the opportunity to bring guest speakers and special programs into the school. That was a major priority for us last year, and thanks to that work and our partnership with the board and to your efforts, this year so far we've brought in Detective Mark Conway from the Watertown PD, who spoke to our students about social medias and the importance of online safety. Tyshawn Jenkins, who's a representative from Wounded Warrior, has come into the school to speak to students about resilience, the importance of being present, self-care, and asking for help when needed. Jackson Olson of the Savannah Bananas spoke to 6th graders about the importance of perseverance and following your dreams. And we look forward to welcoming Ed Garrity in February and Fabian Ramirez in March. So those are our budget priorities and the things that we've been working on this year, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Just in regards to computer science, on page 30, is that comp ed, the additional funds that are, it's big number.
I'm sorry, Tom, what page are you on?
Page 30, object code 56500 comp ed. I just asking if that's the funds we were
The 20,824.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Please, Wendy.
Oh, thank you. In the overview for the proposed additions, we have a social worker at Scotticoke, Dr. Perlato.
That's correct, yes.
And it is, that is in place of the Effective School Solutions clinician.
Correct.
How did that work out where we left that program? Is it in place of a position that was cut, and what's the dollar differential there?
So we'll introduce it today, and then when Mrs. Olson presents, that'll be part of her presentation.
Oh, sure, I can wait until then.
No, that's okay, so we can say it twice. I know that Mr. Giovanoni will give me the exact dollar amount for ESS, which is an outside contracted company that we use for Tier 3 behavioral support, meaning students that need the most intense level of behavioral support. And so my proposal is to replace that program at $166,000 and change with our own social worker that is our own employee, allows us to have a larger caseload, and as we know, is more connected to our community because that person would be our employee. So I think that is a savings of about $64,000, if I'm not mistaken, if you look at the salary and the benefits of our own social worker versus ESS.
Yes, the ESS, excuse me, sorry, the ESS, the reduction associated with ESS was in the amount of $168,000.
I applaud the support. I think we need it. I just am curious because of the last budget here and last year, we asked the question why it couldn't be done, and it was noted that we would look at it in the future and that right now it was working well the way it was. So there's a shift a year later.
Yeah, so there was some turnover based on their staff. And looking at the level of need in the school and realizing that our own social worker would be able to expand his or her caseload
Agree.
would be more helpful for the school and for the district.
I agree. I'm glad to see it happening. I think we need the support, so thank you.
I always like to have our own employee as well. That's just, a particular bias of mine, because I think it works when it's our own employee better.
Any more questions? Paul, repeat.
Thank you. Anthony, kind of continuing from last night, you just get me these numbers. So from SMS page 28, ELL, salary cert, 23-24, actual 795, 145. Budgeted for this year 976, 992. Please let me know where that is. And then 25-26 budget, 994, 644. Page 29, social studies salary cert, 23-24 actual, 683, 691. 24-25 budget, 804, 993. 25-26 budget, 824, 547. And then ELL, that's English as second language, right?
Do you say ELA or ELL?
ELL.
ELL is English language learners, yes.
And the actuals 23-24 was 0, and then this year is 186. Is that staff that you added?
Yes, we'll confirm all of that.
Okay.
Through the chair, do you have another?
No, I'm just saying, and then it went to 266.58. That's adding additional staff, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Through the chair, please.
Yes.
I know that there are a number of questions that we plan on sending out on Friday. Now, for the salary pieces, we might have to do that a little as a separate document, because if we're going back to 23-24, that's going to require us to kind of untangle the ins and outs and who came in and who came out and the difference in their salary. So I just want to have that as a point of clarification. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Skorlik. And the team who's also here. Our other administrators, thank you for being here.
Thank you. So if there are no more questions, I think we could probably move on.
Yes, New Milford High School, including athletics.
You're off the hook.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present the budget that you have all had an opportunity to assess in Milford High School. Before we begin this evening, I'd like to take a moment to express my thanks and gratitude to my team behind me. They're instrumental in the collaboration to come up with a document that we thought was both appropriate and fiscally responsible for your consideration. On top of that, I'd like to express those thanks to also my department chairs and department leaders, each of whom we met with individually and as a team to make sure that we were mindful of all the needs of our kids and our staff. And then finally, of course, my staff. We've been through some rough roads in the last 4 years, and I'm proud of their commitment and I'm proud of their work, and I hope that you can be proud of them as well, because we have a great team that works with our kids every day. So to begin, Keith and I will go through our presentation. Keith will, of course, get to the athletics when we get towards the end. And as you've heard from all the others, and we were thinking about doing an interpretive dance too to present this.
Awesome.
But all jokes aside, the younger grades yesterday were really wonderful. We look forward to working with those kids and the middle school and the progress. We reap the benefits of their hard work, so thanks to all them as well. We want to obviously provide an environment that is going to allow our students to compete and excel. We want our students and all of our learners to embrace challenge. We want them to be respect and appreciate all other human beings, and of course be major and positive contributors to our society. This document here shows what was the approved budget for last year, for this year, for 24-25, and what the proposed budget is for 25-26. You've all had the opportunity to give a gander there. And above are some of the items that we'll expand upon that really touch major areas within our goals, just in regards to our district, our school, and obviously what we can do to improve. We are always proud of our student-led activities, including Wingman and our peer-to-peer. That's all of our SEL work. Our pathway work continues to grow. Our attendance work has been exceptional, and while it has made major strides in improvement, there's still work to be done. And we're proud to speak a little bit about how we've shifted our schedule to create a flex period that's more mindful of what our students need. As the other schools have done, here is a quick overview that tells us, paints a picture a little bit about what we've got for the teachers inside of our classrooms. I did denote that this includes our department chairs. And department chairs are our lead teachers. Pardon me, our department chairs do not teach 5 sections, they teach fewer sections. So even though they're counted as one of those 106, it doesn't mean there's 5 sections for each of those adults. We also have a special ed director, department chair, who is really a champion for our special ed meetings. We also have a new pathways coordinator that started this past year, who has been a wonderful addition to our staff for various reasons. And of course, our support staff work diligently with our students in difficult times and positive times and goals and aspirations. We want to make sure we've got the right folks to support that last row there with the kids that come to our school every single day. Similar graphics that you've seen throughout earlier presentations. I'll go through this really quickly. That's our guiding light, the vision of the graduate. And what we try to do is make a connection or find a nexus so that you're not doing things in silos. There's a connectivity. And to do that and to make that be successful, it doesn't happen by mistake. It has to be intelligently designed. It has to be thoughtfully crafted. And the key to that is communication. You need to have one voice. We need to understand what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. For us at the high school to be able to accomplish that feat and that goal, I really rely on the team behind me. Every Friday we meet in our administrative team meeting where we plan and talk about our responsibilities. We talk about our next faculty meetings. We talk about our next ILT, which means instructional leadership team, and that's all of our department chairs. We want to be on the same page. We want to make sure that if there's something that we need to address, we need to be fluid and flexible, malleable, we'll do that. If we need to talk about accountability measures or break down data or discuss our instructional rounds, which is the next bullet I'll talk to, we want to be collaborative in what that looks like and how we're going to be achieving those goals. Something that we're proud of regarding our work, 3 years ago, we started to develop the language behind learning walks. What does it mean to be a student at New Milford High School? What does it look like inside different classes and different content? And this year, following the introduction of Dr. Parlato's instructional rounds, agreed through our instructional leadership team, we converted over to instructional rounds. And we'll be doing instructional rounds in February, March, and April with our staff, as well as another New Milford public schools where educators from outside our school come and visit our classrooms. We're trying to find alignment to that instructional core. And with that instructional core, what are our teachers doing with the curriculum, with our students to create meaningful tasks that are going to allow the evidence that our students have developed a schema or a true understanding of what the content we're asking them to grapple with on a regular basis. Continuing on from there, our committees work regularly to do analysis of data. We're proud of that work. I'm going to show you a map in a moment that really starts to lay out what the initiatives are. here at the high school, and we're trying to keep an orderly sense of it because every year we get a large turnover of new staff. We want them to have the same language. We want them to have an understanding of who does what and why do we do it. Things aren't done by happenstance. Another big focal point that we've been doing across our school this year, particularly after Dr. Parlato had given a special board presentation about the accountability indices, those 12 metrics, we needed to know where we stood as a district, where we stood as a high school compared to those in our peer, where our strengths are and where our needs are. And we spent December 12th in a professional learning session breaking that down, and we're using those to identify high leverage areas per department that we will enact an action plan for semester 2 and thereafter to try to have those goals come to life that Dr. Parlato planted a flag on in regards to the expected growth for those metrics. And then finally, we've been able to successfully secure some grants over the last several years. I'll continue to do that work with the folks behind me because as much as I appreciate the difficult challenges that lay ahead for our decision-making process, I'm always greedy for more, I'm going to be honest. And if that means I can find a grant that will supplement any one of these goals, whether it be part of the vision of the graduate, anything for our kids, I will, with Dr. Parlato's blessing, pursue those efforts. So this is the initiative map. It's new this year, and I know that for people in the cheap seats behind me, you can't see it. This will be shared with you electronically. This is just a screen capture, and what we're trying to do here is literally show you the initiative on the left, who's the adult that's responsible for it. There are active links that fall in that third column so that everybody and anybody who's interested inside the high school can say, oh, what's going on with PLCs? This is our manual, this is our handbook, this is how it functions, this is its purpose. We try to, again, make sure everyone is doing and speaking the same lexicon. We understand the same expectations so that we as adults can grow, and then through function of our growth, our children can grow. We've also aligned that to our board goals. You'll also see that there's another column in there that has to do with the CT leaders goals, a primary and a secondary, and we've also got our connection to our vision of the graduate. It gives you a quick update where we are, and we actually presented this in early January to our faculty as a kind of state of the union, so that we can all hear the progress that we've made so far this year. With part of that progress and one of those indices regarding the 12 matrix, the 12 accountability metrics, it has to do with being on track. And part of that work this past summer, Dr. Parlato, myself, Mr. Blake, and also Ms. Hollander, we went to a conference where we learned a lot about some strategies across the East Coast of schools similar to ours that were challenging with attendance after coming back from interrupted teaching and learning from the pandemic. So we were able to see our ABCDs because we believe that our students need to be on track. They need to have a minimum of those 6 credits. We need them to be here with a goal of the daily academic attendance, our ADA, of 95%. And for our community, we want them to be involved in some sort of co-curricular activity, be part of the family of New Milford High School, and do the right thing. We really are making and taking efforts to reduce our suspensions. One of the grants that we did secure this past summer is also called the School-Based Diversionary Initiative, and that allows for different training for our staff and different programming for our students to be able to be more mindful of each other, be more welcoming and receptive of differences, in an effort to be able to keep our kids in school, focused in class, and be good humans. You've seen this before. It's slightly updated. Kevin Best has really been a wonderful champion working with 2 of our other wonderful teachers this year. And Kevin, that is Mr. Culberson and Fedor. Thank you, Ms. Fedor. They have done a wonderful job allowing our students to lead the CASEL aligned standards, which are really, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, it's talking about different areas of self-management, self-control, being aware of oneself, and that comes to our monthly programming. We collect feedback from the students. The students then review the feedback in their groups with their adults, and it leads to the next lessons that are crafted specifically to what our students need. As you can see in that very last line right there that's in bold, the moniker for this programming is look up, look out, look after. It's inclusivity. We want somebody to be there for everybody. We want to be mindful of folks, and we really take this programming seriously. And as was said yesterday in public comments, there is a palpable difference in the community aspect of New Milford High School in the last 4 years. So we're proud of it, and it's directly attributable to this type of programming. First introduced last year, and the board was able to meet them this year. It was our pioneer group of our peer-to-peer. This is something that we're exceptionally proud of. We, starting last year, we take the time to train these students. We take the time to meet with the middle school counselors to see who are incoming 8th graders or students who are new to us, to make sure that we can give our incoming students what they need in regard to transitioning and becoming part of our family as expeditiously as possible. We want students to be connected, not disconnected. We want students to be engaged, not disengaged. And we take people who have done it successfully, and we're proud to be able to provide this mentorship programming for our students. It's a critical element of changing the culture and climate at New Milford. Some of the other work that we've been up to, and this is work that started pre-COVID, but it's really gotten to an exciting bubbling point now. And I can tell you that our Pathways programming has really been championed largely by Dr. Dwyer and Stephen Culberson. These are folks who really have done everything with partnering with state agencies to have review and committee boards that do everything that review the prospects of paid and unpaid internships, partnerships with local organizations and businesses, so that we can give a series of strategic courses that are already in our program of studies that will allow our students to have hands-on experiences by the time they're juniors, and then be doing practical applications, and hopefully, with one of the next slides, we'll also potentially be able to earn some college credits along the way and or certifications depending on which of the pathways you follow. I know that we've got some pathways that are more expeditiously created than others, but Dr. Dwyer, how many total pathways are we looking at right about now? 11 potential pathways where students can go to their freshman academy as a freshman. They can learn through field trips, guest speakers, and figure out what drives their heart and their soul. And from those 11 pathways, they can start to make decisions about, perhaps I want to be an engineer, perhaps I want to be in biomedical science, perhaps I want to be in carpentry and manufacturing. And then they can take a series of these classes. It helps them attain their graduation requirements. And again, as I said, an internship and the potential for certifications. All right, tentative, and this is something that I'm particularly proud of with the number of staff that have been able to really go through the gauntlet here. 2 years ago, there was a report that surfaced about New Milford Public School graduates, and that we had one of the lowest values in the state regarding the number of students who graduated 3+ college credits. And at the same time this article emerged, there was a grant which we wrote and secured. And for the last 2 years, we have been working diligently to partner with institutes of higher education. Those 3 organizations are listed down below. We tentatively have 9 classes that are actually going to the Committee on Teaching and Learning on February 4th. And those courses range from social studies, mathematics, exercise and physiology. We've got a social studies course in there as well. If I hadn't already said that, I apologize for redundancy. We've got 2 other courses that had fallen silent, and they've got new institutes of higher education, so they will be resuscitated. And these courses will be appearing in our program of studies. Again, I say tentatively, because we have to go through the programs, we have to go through the Committee on Teaching and Learning. But should there be no hurdles or obstacles in front of us, I'd be excited to say that we might have a potential of 11 ECE courses presented in our program of studies for our students for next year, each ranging from $0 through a grant, which is through Western Connecticut State University at the state level, which would expire at the end of next academic school year, but the course for a 3-credit class would be $65. And UConn does have a fee, but it's I can't remember off the top of my head, but it is less than an AP test. So that means that our graduates would be able to take potentially 2 or 3 classes as a junior, 2 or 3 classes as a senior, have 6 classes under their belt with 3 credits apiece, 18 credits that would be potentially transferable in an actual transcript from that college or university.
That connects directly to one of the indicators, one of the accountability indicators as well.
Thank you very much.
In terms of the percentage of students who are able to take a college level course while still in high school.
Excuse me, can I ask a quick question? How are those courses, how do they take those courses?
Great question. So the way that they take these courses is I need to know who's interested. So it would be part of the promotion series that will start within the next couple of weeks. It would be placed in the program of studies. We have until the end of February to receive course selection sheets. From there, we would look at the number of students who want to take exercise and physiology per se. And those courses would be activated. We'd create a section for each of those teachers and we would fill them through the scheduling process. That's through the high school. Through the institution of higher education, you are their student. So you actually have to go through the registration process. So each institution is a little bit different. In my past experiences with UConn, they would actually send a liaison to the College and Career Center. We'd call the students in, and they could start and complete the process on site. Admittedly, because I haven't worked with Western Connecticut before going through the process, we're actually going to pilot our small group for mathematics in the next couple of weeks. But we'll see. It'll be very similar. They'll send a liaison. They'll get registered as students.
So it's mostly in person rather than a remote experience?
That is correct. Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then another piece of New Milford High School that I'm proud to present to you tonight is something that had been spoken about for a long time but had never come to fruition. And that's an all-around education program at New Milford High School that we refer to as the Summit. The Summit is an opportunity for, and this is our first year of this alternate education program. Our goal was 8 to 12 students, and we're smack dab in the middle of it. It is a heavy lift, and in regards to what we need to be able to do on a regular basis for planning and organizing faculty so that we've got our certified staff working with our New Milford Public Schools curriculum to present it in a different fashion and sense in a different location in the building. This has allowed for our students to continue their credit accumulation towards achieving their high school diploma. It does provide social, emotional, academic supports on a daily basis. This program has demonstrated easily the impact of positive behavior changes. Kids are kids for sure, but this offers an opportunity for our school counselors to be on there on a regular basis. We still use our staff within the building for them, and the attendance and discipline improvements for many of the participants has been outstanding. There are students who hadn't come to school last year, school avoidant, who've come to school. Some are near perfect attendance, and students who had single-digit grades are now passing classes. So we've been able to provide an alternative environment for those students to be able, for us to be able to meet the students where they are. And we're proud of the work of the staff in there, and we're proud of the work of the students in there. And finally, for me, this leads us to what are some of the asks for our budget for high school for 25 and 26. I am asking for the return of 1.0 CTE teacher. This is a position that was left vacant last year. We have a classroom, materials, curriculum. Well, they might be up for revision. They are integral parts for our students to have hands-on experiences. They are parts of our pathway programming. These are courses that could easily access. This is a teacher that could easily access Perkins funds, and this is really a critical position that should return to our hallways for our students. Furthermore, regarding the safety and security of the building on a regular basis, which we take very seriously, it's my recommendation that we consider adding 1.0 SXO and a reduction of 1.0 Securitas. This document that you're looking at also provides an adequate FTE, full-time employee, including our teaching, administration, clerical, pupil staff for 25 and 26. And this does provide for appropriate instructional materials. And this is also going to include additional resources to support access to the arts, including theater, music, and fine arts. Next up, Mr. Lopez.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for the opportunity to present the athletics piece of our budget. Just some great pictures from this past school year of some of our league champions, some of our special events, Michael's Cup Award Day that we got to go to at the AquaTurf, our unified sports team at our soccer tournament event that we had this fall. It's been a great past year for a lot of different reasons, and we'll talk about some of those tonight. The mission of the Milford Public Schools is a big part of our athletic program as well. We haven't had a chance to see the new gym floor. There's a picture of it there, but seeing it in person is pretty impressive, and I would invite you all to come out and take a look at it. They really did a beautiful job on that. Some of the core pieces of our athletic program, big part of it is that we have coaches and people in place that are teaching our student athletes a lot of the life lessons of sportsmanship, competing fairly, respecting others. And although we've had a great deal of success on the field, on the court, with our teams winning championships at the league level, state level, we're also getting recognized at the state level consistently for the work that we do in regards to sportsmanship, citizenship, community involvement, and positive school spirit. We got to go to as I said, we got to go to the AquaTurf again this year at the Sportsmanship Conference to receive the Michael's Cup Award for the 3rd year in a row for the work that our athletic council has done in championing a lot of these different activities and becoming a part of our school community and helping out those in need. And that's a big piece. Our student athletes are learning how to help others, and they're seeing the benefits of doing that, and they're enjoying it, and they're taking the lead on a lot of these different things, and we're extremely proud of that. And then the life skills that any co-curricular activity, including athletics, teaches that is enforced in the classroom as well, of teamwork, self-discipline, when you're dealing with adversity, how do you overcome that, then setbacks, handling success and failure appropriately, setting goals, managing your time. It's all a part of the everyday school day, and athletics does a really good job, as do all co-curricular activities, in reinforcing those skills. We have a very extensive athletic program at the high school, 28 different programs. A lot of these programs having multiple levels, with sub-varsity and varsity. And we had a jump in our participation rate from last year to this year, or from 2 years ago to this past year, of about 2.5%. So we're approaching 50% participation in athletics for our student body, which is an incredible number, and it's exciting, and it's great to see so many kids involved in doing something that they love to do. The biggest part of the athletic budget, biggest pieces, would be transportation, staffing for events, so referees, workers, official scorekeepers, scoreboard operators, police supervision, ambulance coverage, that sort of thing. And then our rental facilities that we use for gymnastics, golf, boys and girls swim, and ice hockey, and our equipment requests for that get us through every season, equipment and uniforms. And then there's some smaller pieces to the budget, which would be repairs and professional development, just for those, every year when things start to break down, having those repair budget items, that line in place, helps us fix things, replace things, and get us through every sports season. One new thing that we incorporated with the athletic program this year that we're extremely proud of, I attended a conference, Connecticut Athletic Association conference last March, and there was a school that presented on an academic support plan for student athletes. So doing grade checks, and for any student whose grade was below a C in any subject, helping that student come up with a plan. And then this year also having that flex period, utilizing the flex time so that students can go and get extra help from teachers, make up work, whatever that may be. But the students get notified, the coaches get notified, families get notified, and then we have a plan in place for that student to go and get extra help to make sure that they're staying eligible, staying on track. And I'm proud to say, out of this winter season, we only had one student out of the 200 plus that are competing right now that was academically ineligible to start the season, and he's about to become eligible after the second marking period grades because of some of the changes he made in his habits. So a great new initiative that we're doing with our student athletes this year that's been very helpful. So the athletic budget will ensure the equipment that we need for our 28 programs, the transportation to our away events, the staffing that is required to run these events safely and efficiently, the dues and fees for the league and state level, and also the tournament entry fees for the teams that enter other invitationals or tournaments, and our rental fees for the sports that use facilities off campus for New Milford High School. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Brian?
I have a question for Ms. Lipinski. I see that there's an increase on item 55-100, page 40. And it's really 204. And it's an increase in $20,000 for pupil transportation. Is that part of the transportation contract? I mean, is that why it's increased so much, or?
Not the contract.
That's not part of the All-Star contract.
Okay.
Yeah, Keith will explain, yeah.
Right. So we try to use All-Star as much as we can, but we are not able to use them for any trip that we need before 4:15, 4:30 in the afternoon, which we have a lot of those trips that we have to play earlier because of daylight or whatever the circumstance may be. So that increase is to allot for the use of charter bus companies to help us out on the trips that All-Star is not able to do.
I was on a trip where New Milford showed up in a Marist College bus.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately been
It's frustrating.
par for the course
The
since COVID.
transportation has been
Yeah,
frustrating.
you can't get
Each of the last
drivers, yeah.
3 years. The first year, I know that we worked with Anthony very closely to make accommodations be met. Last year, we increased that value. We still actualized more than we had planned for. And I think this is just a responsible number that's still
We
conservative.
were over last year, were we not?
Yeah, we were.
That's right, we were over.
We asked for one
That's
year.
one of the costs of success, right? When we do, we're in, yeah, state tournament play.
Seasons extend.
Yeah.
There's more.
I remember that.
Needed. Yep.
It's frustrating.
By the way, my students think I'm really bougie.
All right, Sarah, you next.
Mr. Mankin, I just have a question about cutting Spanish teacher. I'm surprised because last year all the talk was we couldn't get Spanish teachers. What's happening?
So, right now, it's a world language position. I'm not sure if it's been determined yet. I'd have to work with Dr. Parlato and also with some research to see the variability there in regards of our staff, the tenure, also the need in regards of course requests. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, I did have a teacher who passed, and that position, I could not get a certified teacher for it, and currently I'm a long-term substitute in that position. So that is one of the efficiencies that we're part of creating a fiscally sound budget for the benefit of the entire school district.
Because I know we were all hoping that the lack of foreign language teachers would be just a little bump in the road, and they would, we would start to get some more applications, and we certainly want to keep the program going in 7th and 8th grade and through high school, especially now, more important than ever. So I was just curious. I understand what you're saying, but it's not a cut to the program per se.
No,
Just
attrition.
gotcha. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Also,
Question either to you, Keith, or to Anthony. I just want to make sure for the revenue for people that rent the turf field. Right? So is that under the admissions athletic gate receipt? For the building use fees. Do you know how much that is, or could you get that for me? How much the New Milford nonprofits pay annually for the last 2 years?
Last 2 years, New Milford nonprofits for turf field specifically.
The next question I have is where would it be? I kind of looked in the capital plan and I didn't see it. Maybe it's somewhere else in the book, but the weightlifting area at the high school, where would that be?
There's,
In here.
oh, I'm not sure in there, but there is 7,500 this year in the capital plan devoted to some equipment upgrades.
And last year as well.
Yeah, last year, there's
In the 5-year. Is it insurance?
But it's captured in the 5-year capital.
Yes, so the, in the appendices.
Right.
Appendix page D1.
Right. In the back.
It's the third page from the back of the book, actually. And on that page, there is 2 lines dedicated in the 5-year capital plan to athletics, one of which is for $7,500 in 25-26 for weight room upgrades. Again, that $7,500 is not part of the general fund
Operational budget.
request.
Right.
That is separate, that the board will go to and use 5-year capital reserve money to fund that $7,500.
Okay, I got it.
Following the usual request process.
I got it.
And that's been reoccurring, has it not?
For the
I don't know.
weight room, I think 1 year.
But the
current
uniforms,
year.
have they been refreshed?
Yes.
So you see that request every year when we come before the council and Board of Finance, something like the uniforms on a refresh cycle, and then it'll alternate, such as the weight room, which will go before, eventually, will come before town council and Board of Finance for that request.
And so for these, and the board, towards the end of the year, they kind of see which ones in whatever fiscal year it is and decides to use capital reserve for those.
I think there's a difference between end of year money that sometimes we purchase things with, and then we have a capital reserve plan that allows us to intentionally plan for certain things like the weight room.
Right. It's listed, but it's not part of our operational budget. We put it in here to be transparent, that that's our intent in this cycle, in this coming cycle, or the upcoming years. That's why it's 5 years spread out. Sometimes things are moved around, but it's listed, so the intent is that it's the goal of the board for monies that are left over to be asked to be put in capital reserve. I'm sorry, am I saying that correctly?
That's correct. These are not usually funded via end-of-year capital projects, but they do use end-of-year money that is
Correct.
unspent at the end of the year, that then goes through the audit, gets deposited into our capital reserve pending approval by Board of Finance and Town Council, and then comes back to funding.
Just trying to understand the process. So just taking the tennis court replacement of $1.05 million. Is that something that you decide prior to July 1st of the new fiscal year? Or after?
In terms of putting it on the capital reserve plan, we do that now. And then we revise it as we see the needs over time.
And then move it up and down. whenever
Correct.
it needs- Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there, are there, oh, Wendy?
Thank you. I'd like to follow up on Sarah's question, thank you. The enrollment at the high school for some of the reductions. Can you give me an example of perhaps how one of these was determined? Because obviously the budget, it's a balancing act. None of these are easy.
No.
And again, reductions are difficult, but we have it as enrollment driven. I personally made a comment last night, and it wasn't meant to be in a negative fashion, just that we should be looking at enrollment at the high school where the way the classrooms or the blocks are set up, the sections are different than they are at the lower grades. So I wasn't being protective over one or the other, but I thought that that was a logical place to look. So if you could perhaps give me an example of one of those and how that determination was made, because there's several of them, that would be helpful.
So I won't use a specific department because I don't think that's fair, but I'll
Oh,
tell you
that's true.
the process.
That's fair
The process
enough.
is the same, yes.
Perfect.
So
That's good.
I'll tell you what we did this year. So I listed out the number of students that each teacher had in a given department. Right, and so at the high school level, you should think that each teacher should have 105, 110 students. So when I looked on the list of whatever department it was, and I saw that, you know, some teachers might have had 80 students, some teachers might have had 75 students, some teachers might have had 110 students, but another teacher might have had 65 students. That tells me there's a little room within that department where we could reduce some sections. And so that's how the decision is made.
Exactly, fair enough.
Yes.
Because it is a process, it's not just, it's not
Oh, it's not
arbitrary by
really-
far.
No.
Yeah, great, thank you. I had just two more follow-up questions.
Please, Wendy.
Thank you. Mr. Mankiw, for the program that you're talking about with the summit, you said it was half of your projected, so there's 6 students in that program?
Oh, no, we've hit the goal. I think we currently onboarded 2 more. Are we at 10? We're at 10 students. We're at 10.
Awesome, okay, I just wanted to have it in my head. And then the last thing, if I could have a page clarification for one of the, on page, page 38, please, of the high school, Anthony. The 77, we'll go halfway down and we'll go into the tech ed. 77,144, that's without benefits, correct?
Correct.
Yep. And the total cost of benefits, can we get that?
It depends on what,
What level the person is at.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
But it's without benefits. So when we see these, for clarification, when people are looking at this, you're looking at the salary piece and the benefits are separate.
that's
On any addition or any subtraction.
That's
There's
right.
still the benefit piece that has to be calculated if one is calculating in that line item.
So our placeholder is master's step 10?
Yep, yep.
I could piggyback on it.
Yeah.
That's okay, Wendy? Just for one person?
yes.
Yes.
The addition of the,
Yeah, the increase there is the contractual salary increase for the existing 1 FTE that's there, plus an additional 1.0 FTE expected at master's step.
That's in the proposed addition.
Correct.
That's in the
That's
right.
So
17,000.
it's really 2, but, correct?
It's roughly a $2,000 to $3,000 increase
Right.
for the existing person
Exactly.
based on contract.
Yes.
And a new position at $74,625.
It's the proposed position that Dr. Parlato has is in this line item. That's why I asked about it.
plus the.
Mayor, are you
increase.
asking about the 77,000 or the 178?
178.
That's
That's
it.
two, yeah.
Yeah, that's 2.
Thank you.
Very nice clarification.
I'll send them in.
All right, if we've got no more questions, I think we can probably move on.
Thank you. Thank you to the high school. Thank you. Next, we'll hear from the Department of Instruction. And then you can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. Organized. So I too will start with a thank you, of course. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share about the Department of Instruction, the work, and the highlights of the proposed budget from the Department of Instruction. So again, a graphic that you are very familiar with, but this truly speaks to the fact that this is part of the work. This is how we operate, and it grounds our work. So it does with our work as well. But going a little bit deeper here, I want to share with you that the Department of Instruction, we had a small group come together in the fall, and we looked at that mission statement, and we looked at what does that mean for us as a group of individuals who support teaching and learning, look at programming, really all things that have to do with the heart of this work with our students. And so I certainly won't read that to you, but I'll highlight some words that really mean a lot to us, which is coherent and consistency. that we want to create an environment where educators feel empowered to engage as collaborative partners in learning, that we are partners, that we work together for that instructional core tirelessly, really truly, and that we do work with all departments, pre-K through 12, and also within the community at large. So this was something that we felt was important to be able to articulate as it relates to the teaching and learning aspect of New Milford Public Schools. I always, for the past couple of years that I've been here, I've tried to articulate or be able to graphically show the work of the office. I know that you all appreciate and value the work that goes on, but you'll see that it's really two buckets to get a sense of that role. There's one that's really more of the operational, and then there also is the teaching and learning. And I share that with you because I always say we're small but mighty. And currently, that work that is really done by, I'm going to say not all me, but it is the work that I help to conduct, is supported by one secretary. And so one of the items that Dr. Parlata shared with you was the possible addition of a secretary at the central office to both support the work of the Department of Instruction, but also start to enact something that I think my colleagues would all cheer for, is a centralized registration process, which I've already started to talk with Mr. Turner and his colleagues on how do we do that, because it's really supporting our families if they can go to one place instead of all over the place. And the other thing, and I'll share with you in a moment too, is it allows us to really accurately identify students, such as students who are English language learners, without sort of not missing something or not having all the data, because then we're going back and we're spending time trying to figure things out. So we want to really systematize how we do the work that we do. And then the truth is, this is my favorite part of the job. I certainly enjoy working with all the aspects of my job, but the teaching and learning piece is what really sort of drives my heart. And this graphic here really talks about the types of, just in a sampling, of what we're doing from the Department of Instruction in terms of curriculum, instruction, and then professional learning. And I know that through the Committee on Learning, I try to be very transparent and share along the way the work that's going on, because I feel it's important for you to know. I know you adopt things and you have to approve things, but there's lots of information that occurs in the office that I want you to be aware of, because someone meets you on the streets and has a question. And so part of our educator evaluation system now is about professional learning. So that bucket there is something that I'm working on. And it's with a committee of diverse representation with our teaching and our leaders. So just to kind of give some life to that with my experiences and my passion to it. I've shown this graphic as well in the past, and students are at the center of our work, all of us, and it's been my goal, my personal goal, to develop systems. As we work to support student growth, the various parts of the systems must work together. This requires careful thinking about the needs and how to develop responsive strategies. I rarely say I'm good at something. I'm always very like, it's you. But a strength that I bring to this role is including others, whether it's leaders or teachers in this work, and to communicate and share the efforts. Our new report card, which is in the works, it's been a process, is an example of how inclusive this work is and how the community, because who's that report card is for, it's for our families, and we are looking at it carefully from the language to the supports that need to happen to go along with it, to how we're going to share that out with the community as we make that change for the start of the upcoming school year. It also requires coordination to ensure that all the parts align and that we're not working against each other, which can happen, not on purpose, but you have to always be thinking about how these parts work together. This year I focused on my efforts on teacher leadership. I've said many times when I've come to the Committee on Learning, what talented teachers we have in New Milford. As leaders in learning, we are working together to address needs and look for solutions using various perspectives and ideas. And so we now have lab classrooms, and it's a work in progress, where teachers are becoming models for their peers. Again, anything new needs time to get itself grounded and work out whatever kinks there are. The report card committee is led, co-facilitated with teachers next to me. We also have something that, I don't know if Linda mentioned, but our K-12 vision statement for mathematics. That is a diverse group of people coming together to say, what does it look like and sound like in New Milford? Because we know in math, it builds on one another. We are doing instructional rounds, and we also have classroom walkthroughs, which is part of our science of reading. And I know that that work was done with really a strong teacher leadership, unlike many, many of the districts there, which were very much administrative heavy. The work has really taken off because of the teachers being part of the decision making and their voice in it. During Dr. Parletto's presentation, she shared that one teacher position in this area is something that we hope to have included in the 25-26 budget. The Department of Instruction oversees the ML services as I support the development of the grants that are written, as well as the services and reporting that goes on. I know that I've shared this with the Committee on Learning in various times, but it's important to know that this is part of the law, that we have to provide supports for our English language learners, and that support is Tier 1. That's something that happens as part of the classroom. It's not something that is meant to be special services, but teachers need support and the expertise of those who are trained to address the needs of our language learners. I know that might be hard to read, but I hope it illustrates that we have been keeping close account of our ML learners. And since I've been here, we've done, I would say, looks at in October. We've looked at it in February, and then again in May over time. And this year, we're looking at it monthly. And it does fluctuate, it increases, but this is a population that can be transient. And so you get 3 students moving out, and then you have 5 people moving in. So just knowing those numbers, and you can see, and it's not anything that you're not aware of, but our population is growing. So what does it need? It needs clarity and consistency in the identification process and the registration, which I mentioned. We have worked to have a K-12 curriculum, which was paid for through our grants, state grants. We have building-based programming to support graduation, such as working towards having credit for an ESL class and also having a sheltered English class, which was one of the courses that we brought forward in the course proposal. We have translation tools, and we have to meet those state mandates. This graphic is to share with you the current supports that are in place at each school. And you'll see there, my desire is for SMS to have another teacher. It's a shortage area. We have to work hard to have that happen. What we were able to do is be creative through grant funds for the Title III, and we have part-time tutors that are not certified teachers, but that we've trained to be supportive to the classroom teachers, and that's both here at Sarah Noble and at SMS. But you can see there, 75 is still 1 teacher, where that same similar number of students at the high school, we have 2 full-time. It's needed. I think anybody, no one would deny that. So that's for your consideration, and I hope you'll think about that. And just to reiterate that the types of supports that need to be in place for our MLs is really mandated by the state of Connecticut. And this is just a screenshot of a piece of one of the pages, which is 3 pages long, which talks about the expectations for registering, for identifying, testing, and all that other stuff. So it's all mandated by the state.
Quick question. Is there a ratio
No, because this is why. Because they come in, they have different levels and they're tested. So some of the students might be a level 3 or 4, and then we have our newcomers or some students who really haven't had any formal education. So we're looking at where they are at to sort of, some students will get seen 3 times a week, sometimes in someone who's just new to us, might be 4 or 5 times, and the student is almost towards exiting, they might be seen once a week or twice a week.
But there aren't specific guidelines because of the variation on the students who come into the school. Eric and Mayors.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just had a question, when you're looking at your historical look,
Yes.
not to hold you to a specific, but to an average. So the typical multilingual learner, right? What additional resources would they need?
It really depends on, you know, are they new to the, it depends on their story. That's probably a good way to say it. It depends on their story. I mean, I'm trying to think a typical, I mean, I think there's translation services to help the families. You know, it may be something that we have to include social services to sort of guide people in the right direction. For certain, it's if someone is a newcomer, we're truly trying to help them become acclimated and comfortable in the environment. Am I answering your question, or?
Yeah, absolutely, because if you look at 2003, which is your beta line or delta line, right? 84, then it seems like the trajectory started much higher in 21, 22, quite October. We went to 224, which is 140 student uptick, which is about 166% from the delta line. So the question, that's kind of why I asked. So not only is it that, but then it's all the additional services with the increase of the 166%.
Not all, I mean, certainly, but it's not unusual. We have a city close to us, and so students will come here, and vice versa. So.
Is it spread throughout the district, or is there a heavily weighted school that has more than the rest?
Holland Plain is at 16% of its overall population. 16% of its overall population. That is the highest number that we have in the district. I can pull up my slides and look at the other ones. But,
And then because of the way that the two schools come together, then, you know, this school and then it goes on. And I think probably something that has happened that typically hadn't was the high school has become more, has become heavier and than in the past. Typically, students would either not want to be identified because parents can decline services. But I would say, and I will speak to my colleagues behind me, that I would say in the last year and a half, I don't want to say explosion, but it has significantly increased. Anybody back there?
Yes.
Yeah. So where we were kind of in this, at one point we were at 1.5 teachers, we really do need the 2.0 support at the high school.
And there's 17 languages?
Yes. On the two predominant are Portuguese.
overall, yeah.
Thank you.
I maybe not heard you correctly. Did you say some of the students are coming from out of town as well?
Sure, yes, they move here and then they move out or they return. I mean, it's a transient population.
Oh, okay, so they're moving
They're
here.
residents
They're
of-
traveling from.
Yeah, they're not traveling. What I wanted to share here is that I share this with the Committee on Learning, but always being mindful of how do we do what we do? How do we use our resources well? And so we did do a complete audit about 18 months ago that we're enacting right now, which really looks at what are the things that we need to have in place. And one of the key things that we wanted to address was making sure that we had coherent programming for our ML teachers so that we could build on it. And the benefit of that is that when they go to the middle school, we now have sort of a foundational pathway so that when they go to the high school, looking at where they are in the middle school, they can translate over to going, not just going into an EL1, but they might go into an EL3. So we're trying to create the pathways for servicing those students and getting the classes that they need. Yes,
before you go to, I saw you had adult ed up there. On page 43, on the salary line, what positions fall under the Department of Instruction?
You know, that's a good question, and I'm gonna ask Anthony's help, because there are a lot of things that are not mine, but I think over time.
They're in DOI?
Yeah.
I have several of them circled, so I'm sure we're probably looking at the same
So I
thing.
don't
Because I
want-
know we have positions like curriculum specialist coaches who are not, perhaps not assigned specifically to a school. So
Right,
they
that-
don't fall under that school, so I thought they fell under the
And I
Department.
think part of that was some of the interventionists. You know, as positions came in, it kind of made sense to go with teaching and learning, but they really live in this building. For example,
Right.
you know, I won't mention names, but that's part of it. Could you help me?
So this number, what positions does that represent?
So all the staffing that are budgeted for within DOI can be found on Appendix C6. If there's a specific line
Wonderful.
on page 44 or 45, let me know.
I have that.
Thank you.
Yeah, the appendices, they're amazing, they're really helpful. Quite frankly, is that okay? I do have the questions on page 44. I think you'll probably know where I'm going to go. I just want to clarify, when we look down for the salary of the non-cert of $35,539, percentage of 54.94. Can you tease that out for me?
Yep, so there's two pieces there.
Yep.
There's the vacancy for the existing secretary
Right,
in that position.
right,
That has been reset back to the midpoint.
right.
And in addition, 1.0 FTE, that is part of Mrs. Hollander's request.
In the proposal.
The amount of $50,112.
That was my next question.
For the newly requested position.
Plus benefits.
Will require benefits, but the benefits are not in that line item.
Exactly.
So where's that line? 50,000, where's that line?
That is on page, it's on page 44.
Yeah,
The
The
fifth one?
fifth line down from the top.
yeah, that's the 35, you just mentioned, yeah, I don't see the 50.
Absolutely. So the difference here is that in the current year's budget,
Built
for
in.
the existing vacancy, there is a salary that was higher. There's position savings between the person who is in the existing position and the vacancy, where there's savings. And that mitigates part of the increase of the $50,000
Makes the
for the
difference.
newly requested position.
So that, this doesn't reflect any actual salary of any individual right here. This doesn't reflect that, it's probably a combination.
Right, it does not, the request there, the $100,224 does not reflect an active current staff member for the Board of Education.
Because the person doesn't work here right now,
One vacancy.
and the new person doesn't work here right now.
Exactly.
But that's the allotted line item that we're using.
Yeah.
Exactly. And mine was the next line right after that.
Yep.
The tutors, the number of tutors
Yep, so
that we have, please?
That is specifically for the 5 gen ed tutors for the district. There were reductions to this line item in past years that were dollar reductions, not necessarily tied directly to FTEs. The increase here, what that represents is being able to budget for the 5 general education tutors at the new rate of $19 per hour instead of the existing rate of $18.50. And that's for 181 days for each of them.
At 5 hours
Note
per
that
day.
these employees don't work 7-hour days.
Right.
They're paid via timesheets. Right now, we're budgeting for those current 5 tutors at 181 days at $19 an hour at 5 hours per day.
But is it not, I guess my question is, it's not that we're adding that amount, it's how we're budgeting it and formatting it based on last year's reallocation.
Correct.
Is that fair to say?
There are no additional tutors
That's what I wanted to
being
get.
requested.
Although I should have put it in my slides, that is an increase in their rate.
Yes.
Of course, of course.
From $18.50 to $19.
But the year before, it was 17.
Right. It's
So
an
that's,
increase in the rate, but it's not an increase in the number of.
that's right.
That's the point that I wanted to put, because when you see that, that's.
Yep.
So I appreciate that. And then the last item on the same page, please, is the 111% increase, which is the ELA segment. Put that up for me?
Is that part of the science of reading piece?
This is part of the,
Or the interventionist?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, thank you, yes. So do you want to speak to that, or do you want me to?
Before,
Sorry.
Anthony, I'm sorry, I want to just expand on it a little bit deeper.
Sure.
I was more curious as to, because we budgeted only 46, when we came off of a year where we were at 224,000. Why was the budget number so low? I'm not even so curious as to why it's over at 99. I'm curious, why do we budget so low?
are we back to the tutors?
The same, no, but on the ELA, same line that,
We're going from actual to budgeted.
yeah.
Why the specific question is why we budgeted?
Yeah, we came off of a 2023-24 year of an actual of 224,000, and we budgeted for this year 46,000.
That's a reduction in the interventionist that we made from ESSER.
We made that reduction
That was the reduction from
that we're
that.
living in right now in this 24, 25.
And so we're over, is what you're saying. So we're over that 99. We're budgeting to be almost double what we are, or more than double what we are.
What I want to do is there's an interventionist in the Title I funds. Title I.
Which is a federal grant.
To supplant. We all agree that we need the interventionist. Every year, Title I needs to look at our neediest students and put programming in place. And you never know exactly what your amount's going to be. And so my suggestion was put the current interventionist, instead of paying that person out of title money, we can do other things to support our neediest learners, put it into the general budget.
That's what you talked about.
There's two separate things.
Because we're gonna need it ongoing.
One from a grant, though, two operations.
There's two different things here. The difference between what was spent in 23-24 and the 24-25 budget to where we got to in this year's budget is reflective of removal of interventionist positions that were on the general fund and ESSER that didn't continue with the district. That's in 24-25 to get here. 24-25 to 25-26, you see the increase of 111%, and then 2 lines down of 63% that Mrs. Fallenbach called upon. That represents the existing staff members that are there, their contractual salary raises, and the movement in ELA specifically of a 0.5 interventionist coming over from the grant, and then the other 0.5 is within math. So if you add up those two increases for 25-26, you get roughly $103,000. 4,900 roughly is tied to contractual salary rates for existing staff members, and $98,010 is tied to that one FTE that we're requesting no longer come from the grant, be paid from the general fund.
Nice explanation.
Yeah, it's great, that's it.
That's explanation, we're still paying for it.
Any more questions there?
Mine's an easy one, I just have a curiosity question. Student transportation in DOI?
Oh, that could be for,
I'm just curious, it's not the dollar amount, why is it there?
I'm just trying to think if there's homeless, there's monies.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
McKinney-Vento, yeah.
In Evento.
I'm sorry, say that again, I didn't hear.
When we have a student who is homeless, we have a responsibility to provide transportation.
got it. It struck me as, thanks, Eric, I appreciate it.
Where are you finding that?
I'm finding on page 44, if you go all the way up to under description, it's by 5110 Gen Ed, and it's the BDZ2 right there. So I just was, actually it was the wording, I know you guys know I kind of look at the dollar amounts, but it's the wording that struck me as a surprise, so.
It's outside transportation for
Exactly.
situations.
Exactly.
some years it isn't utilized.
I'm looking at
Last
that.
year, it was very much utilized.
I'm looking at that.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So since we were talking about tutors within the district, do you know how many open positions we have and what the plan is to fill them?
Position in tutors? We'll have to look.
I know there's one on the general in Helm Plain. Yes, that's all that I have.
Off the top, I can think of 3 that are filled off the top of my head. There might be 1 or 2 that are open.
Okay.
And so the plan is that we post those. As you can see, we've increased the salary over the last 2 years by $2 an hour, which is significant percentage-wise.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions?
Adult education, I have the great pleasure of having the opportunity to work with adult education. New Milford has a program to be proud of, truly. And this credit needs to go to Christy Martin. I have the pleasure of working with Christy to support this programming. Over time, Christy has really worn many hats. And it's time to sort of recalibrate that for reasons at some point. Christy will make other decisions with her life. And so before, Christy was doing the facilitation as well as the director's role. They're very different roles, but she was really doing it all. And so what we want to do is make sure that now that work has a home with a specific person. It's not all under Christy. We have 1.5 guidance counselors. Part of that comes from grants. Christy's amazing at securing grants. 1 secretary. We have an adult education evaluator. We need that. And then we have 12 teachers. And what also makes our program incredibly strong is that most, if not all, our teachers that are during the day participate in the adult ed teachings as well. So it's a very strong program. And Sarah and I had the pleasure of being in advisory, and it really is a wonderful program. It is a jewel. Just a little bit of background information. Her students, the numbers have pretty much remained the same. COVID certainly created a little bit of that sort of recalibration, but she was talking about that at her advisory meeting, how those numbers are increasing. And really the role of adult ed has kind of gone through an evolution. In the past there was some enrichment, but part of what we're going to do as the advisory committee is study that to see what we want to do as a community to sort of plan for the future. And these are just some of the services that Christy offers. She's an amazing collaborator. She works with Danbury when there are things that we need but don't have enough students or enough money. She works collaboratively with her partners in this area, and she was sharing that there are open seats to be able to give students GED in Spanish that she would not have been otherwise be able to afford. A big responsibility that's part of adult ed is career readiness. It's her job, it's her responsibility to make sure that students have the ability, the skills to be ready to join the workforce. So she, as well as what's going on in the high school, is looking for internships for our students as well. And I'm sharing with you 2 grants that Christy has secured for this innovation. It's a 4-year grant, and she is already deep into creating programming for our students to have access to, and she's very excited. So I share with you the budget. You know, over time, the budget really remains flat. I think the salary piece is the addition of that facilitator role, which we need to have.
Answer my question.
Incredible problem.
It is really. And I am happy to do whatever I need to do to have Christy stay and share her knowledge, whatever needs to happen. I'm going to go pick her up. This is something that we also discuss is the tuition board program at TPOG, the magnet school in Danbury, and then the tech school as well. So just looking at the seats and the cost for this. The magnet is the same, has remained the same. And then we were mindful of making sure that we had the seats that we needed as we recalibrated. I think we've gone through that over the last couple of years. So those are the number of seats that we're anticipating for the upcoming school year.
It might be 28, but I think Anthony, it's 28, 7, 29, okay.
So impact on the budget, strong systems are in place. I want to share with you, it just happened today. I had 2 opportunities to see firsthand the hard work and the impact that's happened. The first meeting was with our interventionists. We have an interventionist PLC. And the second was working with K-5 principals to look at data as we visited classrooms. Our driving question for the visit was, in what ways are students engaged in their learning? Through this conversation, we were able to calibrate our thinking as well as seeing students demonstrate the skills and the habits of mind that we've been working on at the K-5 level. An example. My colleagues shared some videos with you yesterday. I couldn't have planned for it better. And you were able to see our students engaging with the science of reading. We're staying the course. I'm not adding anything. Any increase is really the increase in goods and services, which is true. And really just working on continuing the work. Curriculum writing and implementation takes time, and that time is taking root. We can see that, and I just want to share with you. This is an example, just a snippet of the impact of our work, and we share this with the Committee on Learning. The slide on the left, the graphic on the left, is looking at the growth of 3rd graders over time using our diagnostic, 3 different cohorts. But the picture on the right is looking at that same group of students and how they have grown with the explicitness in the instruction and the instructional strategies that we are utilizing. So all of our good work with teaching and learning, in this case with literacy and numeracy, is taking root. The other thing I wanted to share just for that, this is a really complex thing. This is reading instruction. And it's so multifaceted. And so our teachers are involved in really the science of reading. And I know Megan Sylvester has come and joined us at the Committee on Learning to share just how that reading process happens. But this takes time. Teachers who teach in the lower grades might understand the phonics, but we had students who had deficits in phonics in grade levels in elementary and at the middle school who never taught phonics. So we had to teach into that and support our teachers. And one of the conversation topics that we had today with the 3rd grade is that our 3rd grade students aren't needing the foundational skills that they needed 2 years ago because it's happening in 1st and 2nd grade, and that's exciting for us. So I bring this graphic to you as well because, accountability, absolutely. We have to be held accountable. It's evidence of impact. And this shows that certainly we have areas to address, and we are, but that we're also making some nice growth and gains over time. And this is just the summary, which you have as well, of the budget for the Department of Instruction. And that concludes the overview from my point, my space. And I would be happy to engage in conversations, answer questions, and if I don't know, then I'll figure it out.
Could I have a clarification of you have a position open right now in your office, correct?
Yes, I do.
And we're asking for some more support moving forward, correct?
Yes.
Would you mind repeating, because I'm sorry, Holly, you covered a lot, the general job description of the additional piece?
Can you go back to that slide? Can you go back to the slide?
Yeah,
your
it says
org
split.
chart?
Oh, yes, where do you want me to go to, Dr.?
You know that it's your own little org chart?
Sure,
Yeah.
that's way back.
Yeah.
Yes, if I may be,
It's
a
the
little
word
melancholy
split that is getting me, when I hear split, I would like to know split where and how.
Sure. It's First of all, the work in the department was done by a strong and mighty and skilled individual. And so that, I was a lucky girl. And so we do need that extra support in general in the office. The other part was sharing it under the office of the superintendent to address the residency issue. So that one person would do residency under the superintendent of schools and then be able to support the Department of Instruction with the many tasks that are there.
But it's really supporting the assistant superintendent's office. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that your title is assistant superintendent. And if you go back to that slide, I'm just going to put it out there, right? So,
Go back.
yeah. Yep, there it is, right?
One more. There you go.
Right, so this is, now I'm standing, right? Great. This is a lot of jobs for one person, right? And so I didn't ask, and we didn't ask for a director of curriculum instruction, which quite frankly would be appropriate. And so, given the nature of the work and the many initiatives that we have. So part of the work of the second secretary is to assist with the organization of the many projects, but also to provide us with a very clear focus on making sure we register people correctly and making sure that people who say they live here, live here.
Right, well, that's what I wanted to expand on, because a few months ago, that's exactly.
Which is something that my office does and
Well,
diligent
we
about.
had this conversation at the board, and actually last year this came up at budget, and there was a sheet that was sent out as to how we check it, what's our protocol, because I reviewed it.
Yes.
And it wasn't perfect, but I was led to believe that, you know, we were doing okay in, you know, the registrations and the residencies and all of that. So all I'm asking.
Registrations is at the schools?
Yes, yes,
Yep.
yes. So I'm not, I just want to understand for myself, when you're adding a position, the dollar amount and what the responsibilities for that position is. It's not a finger pointing thing at all, but we're also reducing other positions as well. So I'm trying to understand the role of that support. I agree with you 100% of, you know, the individuals and the job. I hear you. But because residency, it was a bit of a concern as well, we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence. This was brought up last year. And so now, this coming year, I see a way, or at least the initiative to perhaps
Emphasize.
pull it together a little bit more
It also,
cohesive manner.
it also shifts registration from the schools to the central office.
And then
So when somebody has a new child to register, they go to Sarah Noble, and then they have another child, they go to Hill and Plain. And the secretaries at the schools handle that. What we're proposing is that part of what the second secretary would do would be central registration at the central office.
And I guess my question on that is, having a central registration point, if the responsibility is the same, it's just geography. So I guess my question is, would the responsibility be a little bit deeper than what we were doing in the past?
With registration?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, and I think the
That's
other
where I'm
piece,
going.
I'm sorry, the other piece that we talked about was having a time in transition where people will re-engage with their proof of residency. I mean, we are diligent. How we find out is by doing, we look at sales of homes.
Yeah.
We also, you know, it gets reported to us, and we have a procedure that I've shared with the leaders in terms of what to do first, what to do second, and then I am very diligent about being persistent, and then today we sent a letter of disenrollment. So we follow it through all the way to the end.
That's exactly why I'm asking.
As we follow the procedures, you have to follow procedures where, you know, I don't want to do that, but if someone doesn't live in the community, that's not something that can happen. They can't be here. That doesn't mean that people aren't angry and upset. I understand that, but I have a responsibility to all of you.
And that is in DOI, that position?
Yeah.
Mr. Mara?
Thank you. When you were looking at this position and the hybrid, doing all these things and then doing residency, this one person, did you look at other districts and how they handle residency?
They have centralized.
Yeah, they might have two positions. One is a residency officer, and then central registration is a separate position.
And some other ones have parent liaisons.
That's a different position, yes.
So did we look at parent liaisons?
Not in this current budget. I mean, have we
You still
talked
need
about
someone
it?
to oversee it. You would still need somebody to oversee that course.
So would this person be checking addresses,
Yes.
actually visiting?
Oh, no, we have an investigator who does that. That's a
So
different.
we have that now already?
We have an investigator, yeah, yes. It's an outside contracted person. It's not an employee of New Milford Public Schools.
Is it by the month? Or is it by?
It's by event, by the times we ask them to investigate.
Offline, I'll ask you about it.
Sure,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
May I add one thing, sorry?
It's just because it came up last year, and here it is, that we're actually beefing it up, I guess, for lack of, along with other, obligations, that I brought it up. And I was looking for that dollar amount clarification and the overview.
May I add one additional thing? This would also allow us to say, okay, when you start in grade 3, you have to reprove residency. When you start in grade 6, you have to reprove residency. When you start in grade 9, you have to reprove residency. That's a pretty labor-intensive task, and so that individual would assist with that.
For every student, when you
Correct,
start.
correct, that is correct. Yep.
I want to make that
Yes.
clear.
Yep.
So it sounds like we're taking this seriously then.
Yes, indeed, yes.
That's what I'm hearing overall.
And quite frankly, doing that is self-serving, I guess, because I'm assured that things are not because anyone is not doing it, but it's a lot to it, and just making sure that all the boxes are checked, because when they're not, my colleague who does data for us, state reporting, has an error, and then he has to be a sleuth and find out where exactly what box wasn't checked, and then has to go to the paper, and then that takes time, and we don't want to do that. There's other things we can spend our time, better doing it well and right, not because we were intentional, but let's do it well and right. Let's be planful and clear.
All right, do we have any more questions? No, okay. Dr. Pilato, I think we can move on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you. Mr. Turner?
Guess I'm hitting cleanup, which never once happened in my high school career. So this is the 25-26 technology budget presentation. And clicker is over here.
This is DOGA, right?
It's page 69 and 70.
Thank you. Yep.
And as with all the previous, we have our mission statement for the district. And then technology is just a couple points. I won't read it to you, but looking at enhancing teachers and students' ability to do their work is part of what technology should be. Part of what technology should be is a safe environment. We have things such as Go Guardian and Go Guardian Teacher, so that when students take home their Chromebook, we know they're safe at home using those devices. Another one is just working collaboratively with all stakeholders, whether it be students, teachers, staff, administrators. I know in my role, I'm in a different school every day, and I meet with the principals, the secretaries, any teachers that are looking for any assistance as we go. And you get spread out a little bit, but it allows me to see what is needed in the district. And it works very well for me as an ex-classroom teacher. I like being in that role so that I can see what is needed and they have somebody to speak to. In my department, we have 8 people under me. We have 4 Tech 1 positions. There are day-to-day folks who are fixing Chromebooks, who are helping teachers, who are working on the new line boards, who are helping with software and hardware needs across the board. They are 4 young ladies who just are great at what they do. We have a secretary to the tech director, myself, and she's the one that keeps me on the straight and narrow. I couldn't do the work without her. We have a database administrator, Power School. I'm sure you've heard that name lately in the news. So with Power School, that encompasses a lot of things we'll talk about later when we get into software. But when the data is correct in Power School, other things work correctly. And I can say in the 3 years I've been here, we've been able to clean up a lot of items, and we now have a different person doing this role, and I've been working with him individually, and he's doing a fabulous job. Our Tech 2 oversees the Tech 1s, does a lot of the higher end stuff. Setting up systems, working in our Google Administrator Center, setting up rules and things that we have within our system. And then our network analyst, we are blessed to have one of the best I've ever worked with before. He is just amazing at what he does.
What does he do?
He oversees. He keeps the engine running at all times. And like a good mechanic, he is proactive in fixing problems before they become an issue. And any good network engineer is seeing that these devices are starting to have problems. They need updates. This is somebody who's not just working during a regular 7 to 3 shift. He's here early, he's here nights, he's on weekends. When he has a server have an issue, it pings him at home. We don't wait till he comes in Monday morning. And not all system engineers are like that. So we are very blessed to have somebody who lives in town and really takes it very seriously, as do all my folks. So I appreciate everything they do. For our return investment in 25-26, 4 of the major areas are, we're going to continue our one-to-one program. Working with the K2 principals, we have now let the K2 Chromebooks are now staying in classrooms. No longer will you see a kindergartner dragging a bag with them to take a Chromebook home. One of the positives of that is the fact that less breakage. We extend the life of the device. 3 through 12 are continuing, though we are having discussions 3 through 5 about possibly doing the same thing. We'll work with teachers over the spring, and there's discussions about whether we keep that into place. 6 through 12 will continue. One of the big overviews that I've done in the years I've been here is looking at our AV systems. So this year, the 2 things in 25-26 will be the Northville Gym will be updated, so there's a sound system there. No longer will we have boom boxes playing sounds and having speakers just sitting around. They will be set up not only for the school system, but also for community use, basketball, other things that happen in the gym. We also have, and are going to look at Hill and Plain, working with Calabrese. We're going to look at the stage and cafeteria, how we can better invest a little bit of hardware to make day-to-day and after-school activities work better in those rooms. The third one is continually looking for grants and E-rate funding. We have been lucky enough to get $1.4 million out of ECF, and then 3 rounds of PIC-PCER grants. We're closer to 1.5, and we're working on the 25-26 right now. I'll have a letter or a memo to you sometime, probably mid-spring. It's always a $150,000 grant, and then you get a percentage. We've been as high as $91,000 2 years ago, as low as $22,000 last year. This room is a perfect example. The year we got $91,000, we paid for the setup in here, which is not only going to be used for the Board of Ed, but in the very near future, we're going to have author visits here at Sarah Noble, and we'll be able to stream those to all the classrooms. So only inviting 2, 3, 4 classrooms to come visit, or asking the author to do the same thing 6 times, we can have them come in and really just go through it once and stream it. But we can also store that for later on. So when Miss Sarah is teaching a class, she can bring the author up from a video. And then finally, the 4th one is using budget and capital improvement to continually improve our hardware. Our main purpose this year will be finishing up our new line boards where we're 85% done. And this spring, I will be talking to teachers about updating our up to 8-year-old desktops. And that'll be over a 2-year period. 2 years from now, we'll be looking at laptops, and then we'll continuously, every year, have one big budget item, looking at how we can best bring in technology for day-to-day use. Infrastructure updates, you asked me what our engineer did. Here's a lot of what he does here. So we have switches, which are the blinking lights that make sure everything is green and green is good. So those things are then touching all our access points. Our servers are touching all our switches and access points, and our phone system. You'll notice there's a star next to switches and access points, and those items, we're on a 60-40 grant whenever we do E-rate every January. So I just put in this year, and one of our big purposes this year is with access points, we're gonna look to go cloud-based. And this is per where most technology is going. And what we're doing with that is no longer will we just have 262 access points where we have to go look at each one to see if there's a problem, but we'll actually have an AI-infused system that will allow us to say, here's what's happening, here's what needs to happen. But it also allows if teacher A has 40 kids in the room today and teacher B only has 10, those devices will start saying, hey, I'm gonna grab kids from the left or the right and center them so there's only 20 at each access point. And those that will allow for faster internet, less chance of crashing, those kind of things will happen. So having a smarter system, and there's actually some savings involved in that too. Again, if we're looking at something that costs probably $90,000 to $100,000, we're paying $40,000. It's a given, and the town does this as well. I know they're allowed to use it with the library, and we've had those discussions. Software. As I said earlier, PowerSchool is our main database. With PowerSchool, it touches our libraries. It touches our Parent Square setup. There's so many pieces of data that go to and from, whether it's Clever, where all our classrooms are set up, and teachers can use sub-programs that are good for K2 or 3-5 or 6-12. So having that data flowing and making sure that we're reviewing yearly honor rolls, transcripts, GPAs, all these things that we look at and review. And I know I have one board member who knows 3 years ago we had a lot of issues with that when I walked in. We're very clean now. We're looking at a really good system that we're being proactive across the board. We also touch, not as much, but when we're looking at fiscal or HR software, things like that where we share data or we transfer data between the two. So software is continuously improving. We're always looking to see how we can better build and communicate with these pieces of software. Next up is another piece of software that touches PowerSchool and is very important to us. A new program we added this year was Parent Square. And what I did with Parent Square is I wanted to show you some numbers about how we know parents are either involved or are able to get data. So we have a couple things up here. In the bottom left, we have 3,571 individual students. Within that, we have 741 staff members that are part of this, and then we have 4,451 parents who could have numerous kids throughout the school system. And then we have 30 guests. Guests are people who have asked to get information, or it could be board of ed members, it could be people who aren't in PowerSchool who want to get weather alerts. It could be people from the town, folks like that, so that when we send something out at 5:30 in the morning, they're getting it as well. Guests can join on their own at any time, certain things that we set up. So we do have syncable data every night. I think it goes at 11:30 every night, so that if a student comes in at 2 o'clock during the day, next morning that data is there, and they are allowed to then get those calls right away. There's no, anybody has to put in anything. We do pre-registration electronically. Everything flows through the data and comes out here. A couple of huge advantages. In the bottom left corner, you'll see we have 99.7 of our staff, parents, and high school students who have accessibility, which means they either have a phone number, an email, or allow us to text them so that we send out individual items. They can also choose to have things such as, I want immediate feedback, or if we have somebody who's like, I'm working all day, I want no emails, we can digest it where anything that's sent out goes out at the same time later that evening. So around 4 or 5 o'clock, it just shows up. And we can override the digest part by saying this is an emergency, send right away. So Parent Square has been one of our biggest really wins this year, I think. And just the ability for parents who speak a second language to sign up and then say, I want everything that is communicated to us to come in the language that I choose. It really is a huge advantage and allows us to communicate them better. Another cool thing we added last year and we're really building on this year is the virtual reality goggles. We have kindergarten teachers who are using these as stations. One of our big leaders here, Mrs. Sarah, in the library in this room, you'll see as you walk out, there are seats set up in STEAM stations so that kids, when they're done with their lessons, can go pick out a book or they can go to a STEAM station. And one of the things we added this year, Mr. Cunningham was nice enough with his drone to give us some footage. So we actually have New Milford Public Schools footage of the schools and the fields and a couple of activities where kids can see the schools at a different level, which is kind of cool, and they can just use their goggles and kind of go through it.
We also just did a nice collaboration with the public library where our teacher brought the goggles to the library for an evening event.
She's actually there tonight with 16 of them.
Oh, there you go.
Her on the way out, so she's working with the library and using those devices as well there.
And it was to show residents the national parks through the goggles. Yep.
That's great.
And there's a lot of cool tools in it. There's a curriculum within that you can pick whether you want stationary items. So if you're an engineer, you can like move an engine around and move stuff around. You can go to national parks, you can go to places, and you can physically just move around. You could go see a dinosaur. There's so many different things that you can do that you could either pick animals, this and that. So there's a lot of cool things, and the software is always being updated. Next one is the scary one for a lot of people. AI tools. I was on the scary side about a year ago. I gotta tell you, as a former teacher, there are so many cool things, and I'm gonna work with Ms. Hollander on this, and we're gonna have a committee going through a lot of the tools we already have for free, not looking at spending any money, but Canva, Gemini's within Google, Adobe that we have. A great example is Canva. When I was doing this setup, I could say, I wanna see a student sitting at a desk talking to a robot. And it gives me 20 or 30 options. But in the classroom, there's so many kids who have ideas but can't put it on paper or can't use words to really explain what they want in some cases. But when they can talk to a device and say, this is what I'm looking for, and then they're editing saying, no, I want this instead. Now I want an orange hat on the person or this and that. It allows you to kind of differentiate how you're learning. You can go in and say what I want to see first, and then I'm able to put to words what I see. And in a classroom, not everybody can take paper and pencil and just give you what they're looking for. So being able to build a picture first and then being descriptive, and you'll find kids will edit more and kids will find other ways to use these tools. That's an exciting thing for us to start looking at. And I'm looking forward to really adding these tools in the next 6 months or so that we can look at teacher front-facing tools and then build it up so that we can start having student-facing. So this is not something we're just going to open the door and say, have at it. This is something we're going to carefully look at through the Department of Instruction, having teachers decide what to do, but using tools that we have that are already there in place.
That is the frontier. And so one way that the board will be involved is that we're going to draft up some guidelines. So there isn't policy that really exists around AI yet because it evolves so rapidly, but there are guidelines that you can create for your specific district that will certainly bring to the board.
And our audiovisual large project I had when I first started, we've already completed the items on the right, Hill and Plain Gym, Sarah, Scatticoke Cafeteria. High school theater is ongoing, but we've added a new projector. We've added a bunch of things through capital improvement, and there will be a 5-year project for that one to really get good, but then we're good for about 20 years. We've done this library, and I have double stars next to that, which in the bottom left corner shows you the Technology funds. This year, we're going to touch Sarah Noble's multi-purpose room, adding sound and video so that it's an actual working room. And Scatticoke, we're going to be touching the library. I actually had a meeting today with a few folks, and it looks like we're good to go there. Another big one that's coming is the planetarium. Been working with those folks, and they're excited about. I'll be sending out an email either Thursday or Friday stating where we're at. We have the full blessing of the gentleman who started the program, and they're excited about where we're going with this, and that's something that really is on the cusp of almost being done. Next year, our touches will be Northfield, Hill, and Plain, and then in the future, in the next 2 to 3 years, we will be done with all the major projects, which means capital improvement will come down, and I'm building a little nest egg within our regular budget, hate to use the word nest egg, but a small budget area so I don't have to go to capital improvement. So yearly, small little projects for $5,000 to $10,000 if I need this or that, or a broken smartboard here and there, until we have to do another refresh in 7 or 8 years. And then technology department questions. I know we're at the end of the night, so everybody's ready. Any questions I can answer?
Good job, everyone. Question for you. Five-year plan appendix G. So you're looking at next year, cloud-based phone system, 150,000.
That'll be in the 26, 27 year. So we're looking at that. We've talked to a couple companies already. This summer, we will talk to probably 2 or 3, 4 companies. I've been talking to local schools using certain companies and vendors.
You know, we did our phone upgrade, VOP.
I've already talked to that company,
Okay,
yes, sir.
so you already did.
They were already on my list anyway. They're one of the top 4. But it really comes down to what's going to work best for us, what makes sense, and then we can have conversations about if we have something like that. Do we have cross platforms? Do we keep separate? How things that we need to look at, and we'll have those conversations. And Mr. Watson and I will have those.
And next year, do you anticipate really the need for all this in 25, 26? Obviously, projections that we're going to have to plan.
For 25, 26,
Yeah.
the technology for the classroom is the biggie. We'll have one fairly good size for new line boards, and that will, you'll see that's reduced over the next 4 years.
Yep.
It should last 10 years. If we really take care of them, we might get 12 or 13 years out of each one. But for the hardware line item, I expect that to stay the same at about 150 for the next 4 years. And within the hardware, one of the things that I'm looking at is we're going to offer teachers all-in-one desktops or a docking station with a laptop so that they can get a newer laptop, but that is taking away the whole idea of having 2 devices. So the whole idea is give something new now, but make it last through that time frame of 5 years. Most places refresh within 5. Schools tend to do 7 or 8. We do make them last. This is not a, we just buy it because it's fun. It's because they're needed. We have 8-year-old, 9-year-old devices. We can make some things last longer by doing new hard drives, things of that nature. But when you only have a few techs and people to do 700, 800 desktops, it's not a good ratio.
Do you know, maybe I have one more question. Do you use the Microsoft suites at all?
We're more of a Google environment, but we do have Office 365, and that's available for anybody that needs it. Yes.
And are they similar to a more private-centric enterprise? You list in there all the new upgrades to go to the next Microsoft suite you anticipate?
Well, it's app-driven, so it's available for Chromebooks, and like any app, it's a smaller version of the major programs. So if you're using Excel, for example, you won't have as many functions, but you can still teach with it at the school level because you're teaching very basic functions in the first place.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Randy.
Thank you, I appreciate the presentation. Have you looked at, I know a lot of districts have used leasing options to be able to stretch that capital out, right? And that allows us to give the technology to the students cheaper sometimes, and we can refresh quicker because we know how quick technology changes. We get a new iPhone every single year, and we lease it. So most of us do. So have we explored that option? Because a lot of times we can refresh quicker, because it does scare me. 7 to 8 years for a Chromebook is kind of scary to me.
Well, they are set to end. The ones we got from ECF are scheduled to end of life on 2031. So they're taken care of. They should be good. And our techs, we did not do this before we had Chrome. Oh, well, when we first got Chrome, they didn't do it. But they are now taking apart screens. They're able to fix keyboards, and we charge a nominal fee to parents if it's just wear and tear. So if Johnny gets his Chromebook punched, $20 we take care of it. It's cheaper than taking it somewhere else. Yeah. And we're not making a profit off of that. We're buying it at cost. To answer your question about the lease, I've done leases before. The problem with leases is you have to rely on that you're always going to have money to pay for it every year. And I've been around long enough to know that our budgets will spike. Sometimes we'll be on a steady level, but there are years where it goes down 2 or 3 years. And the question is, where do we find those funds at that time for that lease? And then you're also into that whole, you have to buy every 5 years, because in the 4th year, they make you buy it out, and then you have to buy another one in the 5th year. And it's almost like, it's like leasing a car. You're stuck in that cycle where at some point there's going to be one major hit of money no matter what you do. So I'd rather stay away from the 1.5 million and refresh everything at one time and continuously update with $100,000, $200,000 a year. That's my perspective. Some schools will be released because that's a quick fix.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any more questions?
Can I, since we're recessed, the next is public participation, correct?
It's coming up, yeah.
Yeah, before we recess, before I forget, Eric, may I ask Anthony just a question quickly for information before budget adoption? Thank you. Is it possible, I think the last budget position report was dated 11/30/2024, is that correct?
Yes.
Is it possible to get our budget position prior to budget adoption, where we are? Dated 12/31?
Yes, it's anticipated to go out in the mailer on this Friday.
Correct.
And it's already on the agenda.
For business, right?
That is right.
Okay, I want to make you, okay, just, we usually do board business, I would like to make sure that's included.
Yep.
It's on
Thank
the
you for
agenda
reminding us.
for Wednesday, the 22nd.
I'll remind you, don't
Yeah.
worry.
I will note that it's on the agenda after budget
you.
adoption.
I appreciate that.
Unless you want to move it in front of,
No, as long as the board has the attachment, you know, which has the data, you know exactly where I'm going with our budget position, sometimes that.
I think he said it's going to be after the budget adoption.
No, he's sending it.
So the document is going to go out in the Friday
Friday.
mailer. And it's listed on the agenda for Wednesday evening for any discussion on it, but after budget adoption, which you will have the
Document before.
document to review it if you need any of that information on where we are on current budget and current line
That's
items.
it.
In order to make decisions on the 25-26.
No, we get it before.
Good. All right. Thank you, Wayne.
No more
I got it.
questions. Are we all set? So let's open this up to a public comment. If there's anyone who would like to comment on maybe what we just did today or.
Good evening, Alexander Thomas, 187 Aspen Ridge. Thank you. Tonight was really informative. Thank you all. I wish more people, and it speaks to the professionalism of the district, and I thank you, Janet, because it's obvious. Tomorrow morning at 9:30 is the last of the school tour. Right?
that is correct. Yeah, that's a Sarah Noble visit.
So I know we're not supposed to have an exchange, but it just.
I know I did it. That was my fault.
In case anybody had missed that it's happening tomorrow morning. I want to speak to the high school and the summit program. That is incredible, necessary, and absolutely the way to go for those students who need that. And I think what we saw over and over tonight, it happened last night too, but again, hit home, is how different we need to care for our students now than we did not so long ago. The number of support staff, the number of school psychologists and special needs folks, just unbelievable what needs to happen now and how much more expensive it is to run a school now than anyone ever imagined. And these things need to be taken into consideration. I wanted to speak to Schaghticoke. The feeling of the tour at Schaghticoke was so palatable, the difference in how calm and comfortable it was to be in that school this year versus the last. Great things are happening in our schools, and when children feel good about their schools and feel like they're being taken care of, they're going to want to be there and they're going to want to learn. If they don't want to go, you have a problem. And if you don't address that first, I don't care how good the teachers are, it's not going to happen. So the right things are happening, and we need to continue to support it. So thank you all for what you do. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Makes sense.
So, first.
Megan Bird to Carlson Road. I wanted to thank Mrs. Skorlik for including in her presentation a population within our schools that we often don't think about enough, and that is our gifted and talented students. The state mandates that we identify them. The state does not mandate that we service them in any way. And while I am thankful, very much so, that our town is still servicing our gifted and talented students through the 8th grade, we are losing them in our high school. And they're not getting anything that they need further in the high school. And that's just something that struck home to me tonight. It's mostly personal reasons that it struck home, but then, I was reminded with, watching the summit program, that's outstanding, and definitely 100% needed, but we're losing a lot of potential in our gifted kids because we don't do anything to service them beyond the 8th grade. And we think just that our high school AP curriculum and the extra things that are available at the high school be enough. And speaking from personal experience right now, it is not necessarily enough. And we're not servicing them. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the recognition that was brought to them tonight. I know it's only 5 or 6% of the population at Schaghticoke, but 5 or 6% of the kids is huge, and those are our kids that really, you're right, they don't need to get through the basics and have the minimum and pass with the flying colors, but we're not providing them any of the extra to really push them and get them as far as they could potentially go. So that's just something I wanted to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Anyone else? All right, so we're all good. We will recess until Tuesday, January 21st, 6:30.
Thank you. Have a nice week.
Thank you, everyone.